Elsewhere on the continent, Nigeria is still seeing pupils being kidnapped by militia, especially at schools based in the northwestern region of the country. On Wednesday, gunmen abducted 73 pupils from the government day school in Zamfara state. This prompted authorities to close all primary and secondary schools there. At least 5 girls have since been rescued, and the search for others continues. Just days ago, in a separate incident, a group of students was freed after a ransom was paid. So let's speak to intelligence analyst and founder of Bulwark Intelligence, Tanwa, Ashiru, about this persisting issue. Tanwa, thank you so much for your time this evening. I mean, it just seems absolutely mind-boggling that militia would go into a school and abduct pupils. It continues to persist. Why do we find this phenomena continuing?
Well, I mean, there's several reasons why, but I think one of the main ones that stands out is the fact that there's no proper emergency response structure in place. In essence, when these abductions take place, the people really don't have anyone to call. And whoever it is that they're calling, regardless, nobody shows up to their aid, nobody shows up to help stop the kidnappers or to intercept the attackers. And constantly we're seeing that schools are primary targets for 3 specific reasons. Number one is that they're soft targets. Usually the security structure and infrastructure is poor at best. Number 2 is that there seems to be quicker turnaround with the ransom payments when children are abducted, because the parents are in so much anguish that they will do anything to see their children released. And so that tends to be, usually it's pretty lucrative to kidnap the children. And number 3 is that these abductions garner a lot of attention from the world. I mean, look, we're talking about this all the way in South Africa. So these are the reasons why, and these terrorist groups, really, they're bandit groups, but they're terrorists. They derive their pleasure, their ego, their money, their legitimacy from being able to conduct these mass school abductions and getting paid for it.
Yeah. Is there political will, and is there a state will to actually intervene and intervene effectively?
Well, the state is trying to do what it can, but if you know anything about Zamfara state, it is one of the poorest states in Nigeria, if not the poorest one. And the state governor is trying to do what he can. Like we said earlier, once the incident happened, well, this was the second incident just within a span of a week of abductions in the schools. So first thing he did was to close down all the schools indefinitely. And also recently, they've also shut down the telecommunication across the state because the military is conducting an operation against these bandits. But really, you know, we feel that a lot of these actions are just more reactive. There are a lot more proactive things that the government could be doing. For example, shutting down telecommunications, whereas the bandits still operate using radios. So how is that going to be effective? Or shutting down the schools, well, all we're going to see is the bandits going to communities, because people still live in certain communities and they've been known to raid the community. So really, the government, I think, is running out of innovative and effective ideas on how to actually tackle this situation.
Yeah, you're saying that the government is running out of innovative ideas. I mean, could we get it at the national level, where you find actual practical intervention? It just seems absolutely bizarre how this ongoing crisis, it really is a crisis at this point, where children are being abducted when they're supposed to be learning. And we're still speaking about it years on end. I remember the first abduction by Boko Haram, where the entire world got up on its feet. 2021, it's still happening, and it looks as though there's no end in sight. So what is the president saying?
Well, I mean, the president, again, has ordered a lot of military operations, and so the military is also trying to do what they can. But from the work that we've done and some of the statistics and analysis that we have done, what we're seeing is that the armed non-state actors are still outperforming or conducting more attacks and activities than the state actors. So no matter how much work that the military seems to be doing right now, it's not giving that desired effect, because you have way larger population of the bandit groups that are operating. You don't even have government forces that are available or acting or have access to some of these areas. The other issue too is how much the politicians may be involved in their relationship with the bandits. So sometimes what happens is when these abductions take place, you start seeing the politicians actually having conversations with the bandits, trying to get them to turn in their weapons and things like that. So the political will, I think, is definitely something that is in question. On the federal scale. The president is trying to order military operations, and military is trying to do what they can. But really, it boils down to that local, on the state level, is the state actually able to point out where these bandits are and actually try to, direct the federal towards taking them out completely, really eliminating these bandits, because we know where they're hiding out. So they need to be flushed out of there.
Well, Tanwa, it appears as though these are well-orchestrated abductions, and any well-orchestrated operation requires funding, requires capacity, requires adequate intelligence, so to say, as well as the means to be able to even facilitate, as you're speaking about the ransom. Is it just a situation where these bandits are locally based? Or are they receiving their funding, capacity, resourcing from possibly states elsewhere, possibly neighboring countries? What does intelligence tell you about where they're getting their resourcing from?
Well, majority of what they've been getting recently has been from ransom payments. They need to understand the volume. I mean, over $100 million has been paid out in ransom payments just in the last year alone. And these are very conservative figures, because people don't know exactly how much. It's not being tracked. Also, another thing to note about Zamfara State in particular is that it actually has huge gold deposits in that state. And these gold mines are not being run by the states. They're not being run by the federal government. So you have gangs that have been operating in that area, transnational groups and bandit groups have been operating in that area. And also what happens is that the funding that they get from these ransom payments, and also possibly from the sale of gold illegally, is being used to also purchase weapons. And so highly sophisticated weapons that they're getting across the border. If you know the position where Zamfara State is, it's right there on the border of Nigeria and Niger Republic. So they have access to weapons, they have access to mineral resources such as gold, which they're also using to purchase weapons. And also with the ransom payments that have been paid out, they're also using that to generate and purchase their weapons as well. So it's a major, there's definitely a transnational angle to this issue that we're dealing with.
But what does it say about the young girl or the young boy whose aspiration it is just to go to school to get an education? It appears as though going to school and getting educated is becoming a security threat.
It absolutely is. In fact, a lot of us see this as a direct attack against education, which means it's a direct attack against the future of Nigeria. Already, most of the schools in northern Nigeria, or northern Nigeria in general, has lower literacy rates than the rest of the country. And what that means is there's not a lot of industry going on there. Poverty is rampant in the area. And we know that if there's one thing that's going to lift the region out of poverty, it will be a highly educated workforce. And we have huge, vast numbers of youth and young people who are unemployed and remain unemployable because they do not have education and don't have the necessary skills for them to generate some sort of income or productivity. So this is actually, it's a major concern. The entire, international community should be concerned, but even us here in Nigeria are very worried. What happens when these young children can't go to school and then they grow up and they're hungry with access to weapons? It's not a good look, and we're all very concerned about this.
Ashiru, we'll leave it there for this evening. Thank you so much for your time.